Okay guys, heading into Nagano City. I've got to get a few things. I've got a banquet dinner I've got to do tomorrow night, so I'm just going to grab a few things. So on the way there, I thought I might talk about the population decline in Japan. But before this, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Torsten for your support on Buy Me a Coffee. You're an absolute legend. So in this discussion, just like to throw out a few things, and if people can keep their disagreements or whatever respectful in the comments, would be much appreciated. So one thing that becomes apparent when you live here, there's just so much less hysteria about this population decline in Japan, and normally you get this sort of emotion and stuff from foreigners, and especially if you watch YouTube, there's always a lot of blown out of proportion things in regard to this, that Japan's going to die and yada yada yada, and I just don't see it happening. So the main driver of lower populations is women having more access to birth control, and the second thing is careers. So this is what sort of driving the birth rates down, and with careers and second incomes, you have double the income and your standard of living will increase. So these are the three main drivers that drive sort of population decline, and each society is going to have different challenges around this, and I think Japan may be ahead of the curve. It depends how you look at this situation. Japan was the first to sort of have their big 10% plus economic booms over an extended time, and to go into extended recessions, and they were the first to have this noticeably declining population, so they could be the first to come out of it. So a lot of people's opinions, including my own of course, generally comes from whatever media you consume, and how open-minded you are to the information that's given to you. So a lot of information that's out there, you have to see what's driving that sort of thing. I know with big business, they like to have more customers equal more profits, so there is a bigger incentive to make this problem bigger than it is, or more sensationalized than it is. And you just don't see this sort of sensationalism and emotion here. It's more like just a normal part of the cycle. People don't believe that their country's going to fall apart, and all these sort of things. When a country has high populations, it's usually because they are behind in technology. They have bigger families, and as people's wealth gets better, opportunities become better. This is a natural part of the human condition, and declining populations are everywhere in first world countries, but they're hidden behind immigration numbers. So you never hear about the long-term American or Australian residents not having enough kids, do you? You only hear about the immigration, but they never sort of think about their own populations the way they do about Japan, and it's quite strange that they don't have the same concern, because believe it or not, everywhere in the first world, natural birth rates are not replacing. So whenever you hear anything in the media, it's usually Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, places like this, but it's never about their own population problems. You never get a story in the Australian media when I was there about people not having enough kids. It's more on the positive attributes that immigrants bring to a country. The whole conversation's not about birth rates at all. So what I think will happen with Japan has a population 120 odd million. Population will go down naturally with their normal rate of immigration, and it'll come out to an equilibrium and it'll go up from there. But a lot of this sensationalized stuff, and you hear it in the comments, that it's going to go to zero and there's going to be no Japanese people, and you know, these people are obviously living on a different planet. Pre-World War II, Japanese population, they claim, was about 100 million. It was slightly less than that after they did more investigation after the war, but it's gone up from there, and it's only sort of declined after that. So I don't see the logical reason why a population would continue to go up anyway, and this question's never asked. So you're always going to have your top, and you're always going to have your bottom, and most of the time it's going to be in between there. You're going to have growth or you're going to have decline. Very few places have steady population numbers. One of the things that gets brought up a lot is what's Japan going to do about it? Is the government going to step in? Is the government going to do this and the government going to do that? And I don't even think it's the government's job, but Japan deals with this sort of aging population differently, and I did a course in aged care and I got my certification in Australia, and a lot of people plan their retirements and save money, so when they go to a nursing home they have their own room with their 5-star amenities if they can afford it. So even as they get older they like to have their own space, and this is a cultural thing. But in Japan people don't even think about this much. I've got a good friend, Shinobu, and she's been on the channel many times, and she works in aged care and she's a manager, and sometimes I pick her brain about how things work in Japan, and a lot of times people will share a room, 6, 8 to a room in nursing homes, and they're happy as Larry, because the Japanese are quite social. You can see this from my videos in the community. People don't mind other people's company, and I'm sure 8 old ladies in a room, I'm sure that they can amuse themselves all day long, and they probably wouldn't need as many staff as say your traditional Australian in a nursing home. And add to this, I don't have any data, but I'm sure this is true as well. Japanese don't go into nursing homes until very, very late, and a lot stay looked after by their kids as long as possible. It's just a totally different mentality towards the oldies, and they don't spend a lot of time in nursing homes. So even with the increasing aging population, I'm pretty sure as a pro rata, the stress on the system wouldn't be much more, or it might even be less than it is in the West. When I did my practicum or internship thing to get my certifications in aged care, we had to work with carers and stuff for about 6 weeks in Australian nursing homes, and they were chronically understaffed, and a lot of extra time is used because of all the different rooms, and they're quite spacious. They need a lot of cleaning, and they need a lot more one-on-one sort of care because of the way it's set up, and they don't reflect the staffing ratios in the same way. I think they're understaffed by 50%, and the whole business model is to make money. Nursing homes are an absolute cash cow in the West. Here, not so. So on the spectrum of sort of capitalist and communist or socialist, whatever you want to call it, Japan is more towards the socialist side, although it's a famous capitalist country, materialistic, things like that. Japan is quite socialist in that way, and I don't think it really suits to have a sort of super for-profit model in nursing homes and things like that. I just don't think this suits their mentality, and it's sort of reflected in their nursing homes as well. There's not really a really big industry. There's not a lot of talk. People saving money to go to certain upscale nursing homes that have X, Y, and Z about them. Most people are happy, at least in the rural areas, to keep doing what they're doing for as long as possible. And in the case of my village, there's a lot of people over 70, and they're fit, and they're still working, and they're still paying taxes and things like this. They haven't stopped, and they're happy to keep doing what they're always doing. I've done a few videos on the retirement people out in these rural areas, and there's just a whole lot less strain on the system. So the population will decline, and it will balance out. It'll become to an equilibrium. And for the last sort of generation, people have gone the career mode, especially ladies. They think it's the way to go, and that will change because there's only so much satisfaction you can get out of a job. Doesn't matter what title you're given, and a lot of people hit their 30s, hit their 40s, and just have instant regrets that their so-called career hasn't really given them satisfaction in life. So that's going to come around. That's not going to keep going the way it has. Getting back to sort of more stay at home, having kids, but maybe a different sort of work balance, that's going to be the future, I think. There'll become a time where people just don't feel that working's worth it, and there's a lot of discontent that I feel and that I get, that people just don't like their jobs anymore. There's a lot of stuff on the internet about quiet quitters, and in the case of China, laying flat, all this sort of stuff. They just don't see that the working life and working hard 6 days a week is doing it for them. So you can already see that a change is underway, and it is in China. China's probably got the fastest declining population because they've come out of a one-child policy that was enacted in the 70s, early 80s, and that only recently finished. So they like to think that they've got a population of 1.4 billion, but the mathematics doesn't add up. If you were to get the population numbers from the late 70s and extrapolate what the population should be with the one-child policy, there's no way you can come out to that figure. So they've been in decline for a while, even though it's not really reported, but mathematics don't lie. I think the population before the one-child policy was only 900 million when I studied this when I was at uni, and I can't see how that can go up to 1.4 billion under that policy, but that's the official number. So China's already undergoing that now. There's a massive sort of push to not work, and there's a lot of dissatisfaction. There's definitely a little bit of momentum for people making big changes in their lives, possibly doing the countryside living thing, small scale farming, and alternate lifestyles. That's going to come back. The alternate lifestyle thing, that was quite big in the 60s. That went away, and that's going to come back. what's old is new again. So it's going to be the same with population. So you're going to have the ebbs and flows, and you're just not going to have a total collapse. This is just sensationalism, and that's not going to happen. And as long as God keeps putting the nerve endings in the right places, I can't see how that's going to happen. So as far as this sensationalism that goes on, I've talked about this quite a lot on my channel, and you have people talking about all these villages that might die, and all these houses that will never be lived in, and all this sort of stuff. That's just the nature of things. And if you went out to my country, Australia is littered with old towns that used to be cash cows due to mining and many other farming, many other things, and the economic cycle has deemed them irrelevant. And nobody cries for these towns that are literally dead. The name is not even posted, it's not even maintained by the council. It's just a classic dead place, and it might have had a population of 10,000, now it has a population of 50, but nobody gets on the internet and sensationalizes this problem about dying old coal and mining towns and stuff like that in Australia. And it's the same for America. There's a lot of old places that used to be cash cows with big populations, and they're all gone in America, and nobody's lamenting the fact that they're gone, and nobody's lamenting the fact that all these old houses that the workers used to live in are no longer being used, or no longer likely ever to be used. But it seems to be an issue that foreigners take with Japan, and the Japanese just don't care. These are old houses, these are villages that's had its heyday, and things move on. And if you look at Japan, geographically, it's 80% mountains where nobody lives at all. So to lose another 1% of little villages here and there, it's not going to make a big difference at all. And this is why you don't have this sort of outcry and sensationalism from Japanese YouTubers and Japanese people at all, because honestly, they're more educated about these things. They see it for what it is. The old villages and the old towns are the ones that will survive, and I've been saying this for over 2 years now, are the ones that are going to be within 30 minutes of these major Shinkansen hubs. These villages aren't going to go away, because they're always going to have access to services, they're going to have access to transport links, they're going to have access to all the first class amenities, hospitals, things like this, that Japan has to offer, and that will improve as well. All this sort of stuff improves as time goes on, and the further you're away from this, the more likely you are that your town's going to die. And towns are going to die, and there's going to be many that are going to die, and people know this, but they're not totally concerned about it. But I get a lot of comments in my videos saying, what's the government going to do? What should they do? I mean, really, this is just the nature of things. I check back time to time on YouTubers that had channels or have channels regarding the whole IKEA empty house thing, and there's one thing that's totally for sure: the people that have bought way out in the sticks, they either don't have a channel or they don't live there at all, and this is because of the links to the services, and this is why a lot of these places are so cheap, and it's all buyer beware. And if you're just going to jump on the internet and buy these places, the chances are you're going to be buying in a dying town unless you do your homework. Okay, so heading back from the shop. So I like to reiterate these points, especially about housing, and all the shilling going on that still continues to this day, and surrounding Japanese houses and stuff like that. People just don't care if they lead people down the wrong path, and they buy out in these places that have no future, and nobody despises these people more than me. So you've got to have a bit of a thick skin if you're doing YouTube, so you get a bit of hate, but that's normal, and also you get a bit of hate from other YouTubers because that's their shilly little thing going on. And as you guys know, I'm a bit of a tubby boy and I've got thick skin, so I can take it. So it's all buyer beware. If you notice that there were people shilling old houses out in these towns in America or Australia that are dying and have no future, I think you have an obligation to tell people about it and to stay away from these people that are shilling these properties. So stay off the sites, stay off the apps, all that sort of stuff. Do your research, and hopefully you don't buy into these towns that at least for now have no future. Of course they may come around, but if you have a look in the country you're living in, this is not just special to Japan. This is an economic thing. There's some places that just don't have any future for the next generation or two at least, and that's where a lot of these houses are, and that's where a lot of YouTubers and such are shilling. So buyer beware. There are quite a few places in Japan that are holding their population and going up, and even seeing modest price rises. Obviously not to the extent that you see in the West lately, but it's not all that people portray. There's some areas that are really going ahead, and there's some that will just have their natural decline, and a couple of foreigners moving in there and spending a few bob isn't going to change anything. As it stands at the moment, Japan has immigration coming in, and a lot of these are for traditional lower paid manufacturing work, and this is still going full steam ahead, and people come to Japan from various countries, and they get to work in factories and things like that. The pay isn't that great, but it's a lot higher than where they're from, and they appreciate the opportunities. But this sort of manufacturing future that Japan has is not going to change. This is just the nature of the geography, and Japan doesn't have a lot of natural resources, so they can't charge companies revenue to dig stuff out the ground, royalties and such, to fund their tax base. They have a different economic model, so this isn't going to change. Japan's always going to have manufacturing, and manufacturing, due to the economics of it, they need lower labour inputs, so there will be a natural increase in immigration, but the people who like to do these jobs or want to do these jobs or appreciate these jobs, whatever way you want to put it, they're not usually from first world countries, and what normally happens if you open up this market to people from first world countries, they generally don't stick at the job anyway. Not many people want to move to a country for far less pay than they're receiving anyway, so it's not really an argument to replace. So the economic model that Japan will have into the future will be still manufacturing, possibly still niche manufacturing, and depending on how the sort of balance of power in the world works out, they'll adjust accordingly. But massive inflows of immigrants are highly unlikely, because if anything, the manufacturing base is becoming slightly smaller, and the really low cost jobs are always going to be offshored to cheaper countries where it can be done. So they've had programs, and I think they might still be going, where they allow sort of nomad visa types in to stay for a certain number of years or whatever, and that's more for consumption. So they'd still run their business as normal, but they're a consumer base that adds to the economy, and possibly a bit of tax base there as well. But that's not the future of Japan. That's more done to boost consumption domestically. So it's not really a strategic initiative that's going to work. But the entrepreneurial visas, people that do their startups, they know that that's going to work because that's an actual real generator of wealth. So people coming out and starting up businesses in rural areas or whatever, they know that that's going to be a net benefit for the country. So that's one initiative that they're doing, and a few foreigners like the Bensons are taking them up on that, and a couple of people I'm speaking to at the moment on Patreon are also at various stages of doing it. So for these population centres that are going down, that are in rural areas, they've strategically placed them in certain areas and not in others. So certain prefectures don't have it, certain prefectures do, and this is all done at the national level as well. So they have a plan, but it doesn't always fit what the foreigner thinks should happen, because they're looking at it from a different point of view. They're used to high immigration and maybe not really studying how the economy is here and what it's likely going to be in the future. But the Japanese, they are doing some things, and I'm sure it's going to all work out. What's going to be interesting for a place like Japan is I've been watching this AI closely, and I've actually spoken to a few medical guys that come to my cafe as customers, and a lot of medical procedures and diagnosis tools and things like this will definitely be done by computers. So there's a lot of talk that healthcare systems could be overwhelmed, and there's a lot of time wasted in the whole sort of how patients are seen. So they're in the waiting rooms, they're waiting for the doctor needs at least 20 minutes and whatever. They're under a lot of pressure to see as many patients as they can, and the doctors are also getting older, and these tools where AIs can sort of do a lot of the basic stuff, this is going to add efficiencies. So this is something that can sort of mitigate what's happening with the population getting older. So things generally come back to an equilibrium, and as long as there's a challenge there, people will try and solve it. So I'm not one of these doomers who always sort of focus on something that's a challenge and get all emotional about things and whatever. There's always something that can be done, and there's always something that people are doing. But the people that are doing stuff don't have the loudest voices. So the people with the loudest voices, the squeaky wheel gets the most grease, and that's what a lot of people get to hear, and they get the wrong impressions about things. Japan isn't going to go anywhere. Japan's always going to be Japan, and they'll rise to their own challenges and they'll be fine. A country that's been through 30 odd years of stagnation and even slight economic decline, I think the numbers are, I think they only just reached the same level on the stock exchange this year than they did 30 years ago. So it's only sort of just seen possibly a small bump from 30 years ago. So if anyone's got experience on how to manage these things, it's the Japanese government, isn't it? So they've had the most time, they'll have the most data and whatever. They're probably in the best position to make the best decisions going forward around these things. A lot of other countries, they're only used to growth, and the same with the populations. People are only used to good times. People that were born in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, in Australia, possibly America as well, they've only seen good times, good economic times. They haven't seen difficult times. And as far as I know, I don't even think Australia's had a recession in the last 30 years. So people are just totally unprepared, and that's why the government's always opened the spigots of immigration. That's always seemed to be the easiest way to fix problems. Just keep the unlimited growth model happening. So this video is just more to bring out discussion, because there'll be a lot of people who know a lot more than me, and they can add something really insightful in the comments. Would be really nice. And the people who just want to mouth off, do it somewhere else. To have a channel that sort of promotes a bit of adult talk, and this is a topic that will generate that, because it's an interesting one, isn't it? So like with anything, there's going to be ups and downs. I read an article a few years back of institutional investors piling into China for the aged care industry. They could see that it was a cash cow in the making. The institutional investors, they poured in to build these facilities and whatever, and they'll get out at some stage, because these people will pass on it, and there won't be as big a customer base. So the aged care industry will keep going, and the childcare industry will decline a little bit, and that will reverse, just like everything. There's schools that come available for sale actually in Japan while I'm on this topic, and these are in these rural areas that people are no longer living in, and there's no families, so obviously there's no pupils to go to school, and they've been shut down a long time ago. And you can actually buy these massive old schools, and I remember seeing a video of one guy who did that, but I don't know what it could be used for, or even if he's doing anything now about it. But these are the sort of opportunities, I suppose, that come around, but I can't see a business that's going to need that sort of building for out in a rural area. So you see these sort of strange things that you might not see in your own country out in Japan, and people don't buy them. But a lot of foreigners sort of see this sort of thing and say, I want it. And some people are silly enough to go and buy it. So this happens. So anyway, when you live in a different country, it's always different, and you always have these sort of surprises. But anyway, I've got to go in, and as always, hope you like the video. Kuro Hichad and Hotaru, the kitten, basking in the sun. Oh, Kuro can see me.
さ。Let's go back home.